We're at the Wisconsin Tech Summit. What is something that you feel like is overrated or underrated within AI right now?
What's overrated is the rate in which AI is taking over everybody's jobs. I think what's underrated is what you can do with it. And one example of that, especially as we're in a big company right now, like Oshkosh, and big companies are figuring out how they can implement AI. And I think what's really interesting or overlooked about AI is the rate in which you could do more things. And the famous quote I like to use on this is, before I started using AI, my backlog was three things. Now that I use AI, my backlog's 100 things. So I just have so much more things I can do.
The big thing that always comes to me is the overuse of agents. It's empowered a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but it's also very risky to do. And right now, a lot of things that people are using agents for, they should just be building workflows with AI integrated into it. Because right now they're wasting a bunch of money on tokens. They're letting it do drift. They're putting it in risky situations that can make them liable or do damage to their infrastructure. We just saw the instance with Pocket OS where it deleted a production database of 3 months of consumer data. So I think agents are a little overhyped. Whereas I think they really need to go back to their actual infrastructure workflows, how their business is operating, and then embed AI into it in the workflow step, but not have it be an entire agent process. So I think the whole everything is agents is overhyped.
What do you feel like is maybe underhyped right now, or maybe have a lot more potential than people realize?
That one's a bit harder because there's a lot of different stages for organizations. I think one of the underhyped aspects is I think a lot of the use cases people are doing are very silly, right? Like everyone's doing, consumer interaction AI, but the ability to just even clean up your data, your organization's data and infrastructure is one of the best use cases, because having it just read through all of those files on your SharePoint that you've never organized and are chaotic, it could index and help create an organizational structure that will actually empower the use of AI and have data more constrained or organized in a way that AI could actually leverage better. Yeah. And so like having it clean up your mess that you let humans create for 10 years is probably the best and underappreciated use case of AI.
I can't speak for everybody, but I'm not sure I know what AI means. If anything, I think AI has a branding problem. I would go with IA versus AI, and the I would be for intelligence and A would be augmentation. Think about like a winch on a shrimp boat net or a crowbar, right? That's leverage. I think these are two tools for leverage. The artificial thing, I'm not sure about.
What about underrated? What do you feel like is being not utilized enough within that technology?
Probably exploring design spaces around concrete math, right?
Let's elaborate.
So there's a deep history in certain industries like financial technology that effectively got seeded when the government started shutting down the Cold War II programs, and a lot of physicists ran into it in the 70s. There's this equation called the Black-Scholes equation. It ended up being a calculator. A lot of these models can be further constrained by just basic scientific rigor, and we're not taking that approach as an industry, but we are at Vadr.
I think there's this overrated element that we will see a massive replacement of employees, that workforce will disappear, and almost automatically the AI will do that true job replacement. And the reality is we still need a human at so many different layers. At some point, there will be that kind of waterfall event where something cascading and negative does occur with AI, where folks will have to realize like, oh no, if there was a human here, this would have been avoided. Yeah. So as we're going towards that, I still see the human being central to almost all roles, to many roles inside corporations.
Anything underrated you feel like worth talking about?
I mean, it's still the data layer and the true discovery platforms. When you're looking at what you're going to be able to do in advanced materials, what you're going to be able to do in sciences and in deep tech, we still are at like the early stages of what new discoveries we'll find in the future.
Awesome. What's overrated or underrated with AI right now?
Being careful about the hallucinations and if the data is actually correct, like people not double checking on it, taking it with a grain of salt, I guess, is my advice on these things. I'd like to use it in more sophisticated ways, so I'm hoping to talk to more people here to figure out some things that I still haven't figured out yet.
The most underrated thing is organizational change, meaning we have tacit knowledge that's just rampant throughout organizations. They haven't taken any time to actually codify those things. And that's what AI tools can really allow us to do, is say, what's in the heads of people? How do we make it a system? And then how do we best roll it out to make sure that we have consistencies?
Overrated, I think, is perhaps the tendency for folks using AI to think it's gospel, that, whatever AI, whatever agent you're using, whatever program, that it is the truth, and it's rigorous and it's been vetted. And of course, we know that it's really just a probabilistic numerical model that's able to access huge amounts of information, but it's only as good as its training, its data set, etc. So I think it has to be used with the right lens and the right caveat.
He takes on underrated right now?
Underrated. I'm by no means an expert, but I use it as a virtual colleague, everything from an intern doing research projects on the side, all the way through to pressure testing, stress testing, a written document, how can it be improved? And, kind of trying to create an iterative loop where I'm not just leaving it all to AI, but obviously AI is able to access enormous amounts of data and probably find some holes that I've missed. So I appreciate it for that reason.
Overrated is the AI optimist, the person who believes AI can do anything out of the box. And that's really just not the case. There's so much that goes into building a great model or building a great process that a model supports. And I think that's the idea. Be process-minded first, and then let AI support that process. If people were thinking in that vein, that's where I believe AI is kind of underrated, is the ability for AI to say, hey, we have this concept, we have this process, now we've looked process first. Let's dig deeper. Let's partner. Let's have conversations with people who might know how our process can evolve. And so I think that's one of the aspects where I kind of see that overrated, but then I also see that aspect of underrated where there are people who are pessimistic about AI. And so they're not willing to explore. They're not willing to fail. They're not willing to try. And so that's what I encourage. I encourage people just to kind of dabble a little, but have conversations, and those partnerships will lead to potentially great outcomes.
One trend that I really see is that there's a huge need of adoption. So not just about how you do things. I see there's so much overhype, I think, you see every day. You go into a webinar or you see all these videos. This is how you do this in 30 seconds. That I don't think it's as useful. And you see like 95% of company having problem adapting to AI technology last year. And the reason for that has a lot less to do with whether the technology work or not. I think a lot of them does work pretty nicely. You're able to do things, but it's also a people and cultural aspect. Many of the tools are not really built for multiple people to work together as a team with AI. People don't understand, they're not going to trust it. So I think there's a really big importance of making sure AI and the processes that AI working in are transparent, understandable, and be able to work between the human and the agentic AI. That loop has to close, and people really need to work together on that.
Awesome. Thanks, man.